Joe Biden has unveiled his budget, and it has a couple of good things in it for progressives when it comes to domestic spending, but oh boy, does it have a lot for the military. He has requested $886.4 billion. That's just for the next year. That's just that 1 year, and then we're gonna do this again with another nearly $1 trillion. That is an increase of $28 billion just from last year. And just in case you weren't paying attention to American politics last year, we had a really big military defense budget then. I wanna go over the last couple of years. So we like to show this chart. This is a chart from 2022. This is a comparison of our military budget to basically all of the other big world players. We're bigger than all of them. And by the way, that was when our budget was $801 billion. It's nearly 10% larger than that. Just in this next proposed budget, we've effectively added a Japanese and South Korean military to our military. The increase is larger than the entire military budget of literally dozens of world powers. I guess nobody knew that we were on the brink of being just utterly destroyed as a country last year. It's a wonder that we survived this long. That's how desperate our need for additional military spending is. And this is not anything new. If you take a look at the changes over the last few years, it just always goes up. Big increases year to year to year. Back in 2018, when we were at $682 billion, we barely could survive as a people. That's why we needed it's been 5 years, they're adding $200 billion. Think about how many major programs could be funded just by that. We were just talking about Bernie Sanders' increase of the salary for public school teachers. It would be a quarter of just the increase in the budget over just the last 5 years. And we would be every bit as safe as a country. What do you think?
Yeah, so the CBO, that's Congressional Budget Office, is nonpartisan, says that there's about at least $100 billion of waste. $100 billion could fund so many programs that help you and your family. Tons and tons of programs. You can get teachers of $60,000 and have plenty of money left over for paid family leave. You could all get 12 weeks off after you have a kid, paid. Nope, we're just gonna give it to Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, et cetera. And nobody even cares. The Pentagon never passes an audit. What does that mean? That means they're taking the money, they're shoving it into the pockets of corporate executives and defense contractors. And then when the auditors come, they go, of course you have nothing but crooks in this place. You think you're gonna get results where we show you where we spent your nearly $1 trillion? No, we stole it and you'll have to like it. It's the most wasteful part of our government by an order of magnitude. When you include the money being sent to Ukraine, et cetera, it goes from 880 or so to about $950 billion, nearly $1 trillion. It's already more than half of our entire spending. Discretionary spending is on defense. You put in law enforcement, things like Department of Homeland Security. It's comical, almost 2/3 of our budget is spent on war, weapons, war, weapons. Are we nuts? And yes, the answer is definitively we're nuts. We've been taken over by corporate robots. We've been put to sleep by corporate media. And we can't tell that spending 2/3 of our money on weapons, by the way, that we never even use, okay? Instead of actually helping our kids with food and education and decent paying jobs for the population and services from the government and parks, I mean, just anything else. Nope, this will pass easily. The rest of Biden's budget is a joke. None of the progressive parts will pass. They're all for marketing purposes. Biden will not even try to pass them. But if progressives somehow miraculously tweaked 1% or 1% of this budget, Biden would come at them with a fury you've never seen.
Yeah.
So wait, Obama massively increased the budget, defense budget. Trump massively increased it on top of that, and now Biden is massively increasing it on top of that. So where's all the fighting about? Oh my God, critical race theory, M&Ms. My ass, they're robbing you blind, and it's completely bipartisan. They're funneling all of your tax dollars that you worked so hard for to the richest corporate executives in the world. and saying it's done for your security. Who the F is invading us? All we ever do is start conflicts across the world. Is Canada about to invade us? So much so that we should spend so much more money on those weapons we don't use to protect us against the Hungarians and the Canadians and people from Botswana and Laos. Okay, are you insane? Spend it on us. And hey, Republican, I'm gonna try to not use adjectives here that are insulting. Republican voters, you say you're against war, you're for America first. Why not take that money and spend it in America on you and me? Why are we spending it on giant billionaire executives? Why? How does that help you? Please, you're in the middle of a rebellion against the establishment. The rebellion is really wayward and going in weird directions, but I like that you started a rebellion. Can you focus it towards things that make sense instead of agreeing with your dumb, corrupt politicians that we should give all the money to their donors? That doesn't help you 1%. For God's sake, do something rational. And Democrats, they're never, by the way, last thing on this. I got a bunch of Democratic trolls, probably paid bots or whatever they are, on social media who are like, Cenk, you are hurting Democrats by pointing out how gigantic the defense budget is. And that some Democrats are opposed to it. But no, I checked the numbers. It's progressives. And you know what happens? These budgets, defense budgets pass overwhelmingly. Overwhelmingly how? Republicans have a slim lead in the House. No, 2/3 of Democrats join the Republicans in going, pork. Give all the money to our donors. Give all the money to our donors. Did you get a sense from mainstream media? Did you get a sense from MSNBC? That 2/3 of Democrats are traitors who give all of your money to their donors? No, don't criticize the beloved Democrats.
This Biden military budget request is high, it's the highest ever, but Congress, just like last year and the year before that and the year before that, Congress is going to try to punch it up even more. So it's going to get even higher. And at the same time they did this last year, the school lunch program where the federal government covered the cost of school lunches so that people who are struggling financially from the pandemic, their kids could eat lunch at school and they didn't rack up school lunch debt, which is an insane concept to begin with in this country. But renewing that program would have cost around $12 billion, and Congress was on the fence about letting it slide. They extended it for a few more months and it's expired now. But at the same time, they were trying to punch up the military budget by like 50 or 60 billion more. And that's just a perfect encapsulation of how little they care about the average working person in this country and their material needs, and how beholden they are to defense contractors, corporations, lobbyists, the power players in Washington who help fund their campaigns. And until people really realize that, nothing's going to change. But especially if Democrats, who are supposed to be the anti-war party, that's their legacy, right? And they've totally abandoned that. Until they start fighting back against this, even when it's their own president, the president from their own party calling for increases to the military budget, if they turn a blind eye in 4 or 8 years of a Democratic administration, how can anybody expect anything to change? But the answer is, like you're saying, Cenk, 2/3 of Democrats don't want things to change. It's working just fine for them. It keeps them in office, their paychecks keep coming in, and they're gonna have a job lined up for them when they leave Congress.
There's one last layer of this that you need to know. And you can probably, if you've been paying attention to American politics, you can probably see where this is gonna go. So Democrat proposes big increase to military defense. So obviously he gets credit from the right? He has been criticized. People like Barbara Lee has criticized him. By the way, she and Mark Pocan introduced legislation that would reduce the US military budget by $100 billion, which is going to have them labeled communist scum for the rest of their life. And by the way, that would only bring us back down to 2020 levels. No, he wants to add $30 billion to the defense budget. And Mike Rogers complained that he's proposing to increase non-defense spending at more than twice the rate of defense. He's not even like complaining that it's not enough defense. He's just like, you do not get to do non-defense stuff more. It bothers me on a deep level that you would prioritize anything over defense. And then let's see, Rogers says he has incredibly misplaced priorities that send all the wrong messages to our adversaries. Senator Roger Wicker called his budget request woefully inadequate and a serious indication of President Biden's failure to prioritize national security. His military defense budget request is $200 billion more than Trump's first request. $200 billion, it's woefully inadequate. And just to forget that this is like a news show, forget that we're at a desk or whatever. As a regular person, can you imagine spending $850 billion on a thing, and the next year, if you don't spend even more, your country is gonna utterly fall apart? What happened to the weapons that we bought? What happened to the tanks and the helicopters and the ammunition and the missiles and all that stuff? That it just doesn't matter after 1 year. You might as well have not even spent it because you always have to spend more. Would you follow this sort of spending strategy on your car or on your house? You do $800,000 of maintenance on your house, and if you don't spend $1 million next year, the house is gonna collapse. Wouldn't you start to question what's going on there in terms of the spending? It's utter madness, but almost nobody questions it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, of course, if we had a functioning press in this country, everybody would be questioning it. See, this is monstrous. Why do we need to spend more money than all of the other major countries in the world on defense? All of them combined. Why do we have to spend $200 billion more than Trump did? Why does Biden have to do that? 0 reporters were last at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. In fact, the only thing that they'll ever do is write hit pieces on Barbara Lee and anyone who questions the defense budget. They'll do it under the guise of, is this a smart political strategy for Democrats? Or could they lose some critical elections in swing states if they do this? Don't you dare ever propose corporate rule. You'll lose in swing states. Why? Because swing states love corporate rule. They want Raytheon's CEO to get even richer. Otherwise, that's it. They'll vote for Republicans. Okay, it doesn't matter. Corporate media never proves anything. They just spew nonsense, toxic nonsense 24/7. John, I was gonna read the same quotes you did. I found them hilarious. So the usual question for you guys, is Joe Biden super dumb? Like one of the dumbest people in the whole country? It's just a question, it's not a statement, okay? Now, did he think that adding 30 billion to the defense budget would get the Republicans to say, good job, good enough, thank you, we appreciate it? Or did he realize, like every sentient person in the world, that they would say it's woefully inadequate, he has endangered our national security? So what were you gaining, Joe? Were you gaining political credit? No, you got 0, none. They called you a commie anyway. Are you that unbelievably dumb that you thought the Republicans would give you credit or at least be neutral on this? No, the answer is Joe Biden is not that dumb. He's just as corrupt as everyone else, maybe even worse. So he tells you that he's gonna do progressive things, and then he spends 200 billion more than Trump on defense. Because he never meant a word of it. I know a lot of you have been brainwashed by mainstream media, especially if you're in my age demographic. Oh, Democrats are the good guys. They're here to help you. Don't ever criticize them. You'll be helping Trump and the Republicans. No, you can kick the living crap out of Trump and the Republicans and still criticize the Democrats. Well, but that would be objective. Yeah, goddamn right, that's what you're supposed to be. So no, Joe Biden is intensely corrupt and is funneling billions of dollars of our taxpayer money to his corporate donors. Everything else is a lie.
Yeah, I think people really need to think about how propagandized they are around the role of our military here and around the world. And in Congress, you see this cowardice. They're all afraid to even propose a moderate cut to the military budget. And you're un-American, you're weak on national security, you're a traitor. If you propose restoring the military budget to Obama era levels, it's a moderate decrease. And no one will touch it other than a Bernie. I think maybe Markey did. A couple people have suggested it, but most Democrats won't. And again, this is the party that is purportedly anti-war, but through their support and continued calls for funding to Ukraine, their total hands-off approach to our role in the war in Yemen and the horrors that we are funding and inflicting there, they really don't care. And they've completely abandoned that principle. And I think that's what makes progressives mad. It's not that you want Democrats to lose and Republicans to win. That's a very simple-minded way of seeing politics in this country. It's that we want Democrats to actually be a strong anti-war party. That's what we want. As peace advocates, as people who want diplomacy and nonviolent solutions to global conflicts, we want the Democratic Party to be that messenger. But they're not. And that's what's so frustrating. So that's where the criticism comes from. It's not that anybody on the progressive side wants Republicans to win. That is stupid. And people who say that should not be taken seriously.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.